Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCap. I'm the King Live, and today we're going to be going over the agent that goes under everyone's radar but consistently has been one of the most overpowered and important agents in Valorant since even the beta. That agent happens to be a Sentinel, and if you haven't guessed already, that Sentinel is going to be Sage. You know me, I like to keep my intros short and sweet to not waste your time, so if you want to follow me as I break down why Sage is so impactful and how you can use her to absolutely carry your games of Valorant, just stick around. But first, let me introduce our question of the day, which is, do you think Valorant is trending more towards an ability-based game with the recent meta switch? On Valorant's release, they seemed to really talk about how gunplay was the main focus of the game. But as of recently, for many, it started to feel like because of the post-plant meta, abilities are the largest factor in the game. I'm interested to hear what you all have to say, but with all of that aside, let's get into the video with what makes Sage different from the other agents. A lot of people don't even think of Sage when the word Sentinel is mentioned, and the reason for that is because she doesn't watch flanks the same way that a Sentinel like Killjoy or Cypher do. Cypher and Killjoy can use their utility to cover off choke points and prevent enemies, and Sage doesn't necessarily do this. Or does she? Something that a lot of players don't keep in mind is that Sage's wall is actually in many ways an info ability, just like Killjoy's turret or Cypher's tripwires. And although we don't use it in the same way as Cypher's tripwires, it actually practically does the same thing as them, just better. It's important to understand that when Sage walls off an area, until that wall is destroyed, she knows nobody is going to be pushing that area. Because if they want to get through that area, they either have to make noise by using movement abilities over it, or they're going to have to make noise by destroying it. Now, although you're not going to be using Sage's wall all the time to watch flanks, what you're often going to be using Sage's wall for is to block off choke points on site and to create a barrier for your team to defend from. So although you're not watching the flank, you are making it more difficult for enemies to enter through a different area on site, which in many ways has more value because they can block off a far more common entry point and make it infinitely more difficult for the enemies to retake. And then you could have a player who's playing post-plant watch the flank instead while they're waiting for the bomb timer to tick down. Sage sacrifices info on flanks to help your team gain more info on site. Because I can promise you, nobody's going to be entering these choke points while there's a Sage wall or slows coming down in their face. Not only that, but because of the way Sage can physically cut sites in half, on many maps she entirely changes how the map is played. On maps like Bind or Icebox, for example, there are specific strategies that teams commonly run to help them cut the site in half and get the bomb down as easily as possible and set up for post-plant. These strategies don't work if you don't have a Sage wall. For example, this plant on B site Icebox becomes a lot more dangerous if you don't have a Sage there to wall, because players from Snowman can peek you and you can always get spammed through the green box from mid. Meaning that if you want to go for a quick plant there on B, Sage is the best way to do that. When compared to other Sentinels, she brings something to a team that no one else does. And of course, she's not watching flanks the same way that a Cypher or Killjoy would, but in compensation for that, she is blocking off other entry points on site with her wall and slow orbs, forcing the enemy team to adapt their positioning for retakes. Another amazing thing Sage does, particularly on defense though, is because teams generally like to push a site as 5 in matchmaking, Sage is incredibly good because she can wall off an area of the map and instantly allow her team to rotate without worrying about being flanked. Now, this is something Cypher and Killjoy are also capable of doing, but because their utility is not a physical barrier, sometimes there's question of if players have maybe pushed up on the tripwires, found a way to jump over them, or are just playing close on them. Beyond that, tripwires are a lot more quickly dealt with and can be a little bit less secure for locking down areas of the map because after a trip is destroyed, enemies could have pushed up very quickly. So although Sage only has one wall, it is by far the best ability for locking down an area of the map and giving your team the ability to rotate more freely. But because this sort of ability doesn't show a direct impact, players don't realize how big of a role Sage can play on a team. And that's why a lot of the times when players are hard pushing sites and they're realizing the whole team was prepared for them to push, they don't realize that the reason the team was prepared is because Sage had a wall on the other side of the map, so they knew nobody was going to be flanking. This isn't even factoring in her res or her heal either, which easily have the ability to turn the tide of rounds themselves. People seem to forget how impactful being able to minimize the damage from trades with a res can be. Oftentimes you'll be losing 2 players in a big play from the enemy, but being able to res it and make it so that trade was actually just a 1-for-1 can be massive for your team, and so many times that's the difference in these rounds. That's just some of the reasons why Sage is so strong though. Now before we move on to how Sage is played, what I really want to recommend is if you're looking to improve, that you check out our hyper improvement system on skillcap.com. We have up-to-date lineups, courses on how to climb with each agent, Smurf commentaries where a higher rank player walks you through how to carry in your rank, and so much more. Come join over 500,000 satisfied members, improve that KDA, and get the rank that you've always wanted at skillcap.com. Link in the description below. How exactly do you play Sage though? Because her playstyle is pretty different from a lot of the other agents in Valorant. Well, the biggest thing to keep in mind with Sage is that the wall and her slow orbs are the biggest tool in her kit. Her heal is really nice for topping people off after trades, but all of the stall in her kit is from her wall and her slows, and if you're on offense, you're going to be using those to prevent players from pushing areas and to provide your team cover when planting the bomb or trying to cross different sight lines. On offense, when you're entering sight, your main goal should be to get to one of those common choke points and use your wall to block off that area and make it more difficult for defenders to come in for a retake. It may be tempting to use your wall to help yourself get some fancy off angle, but there's no guaranteed value right here, and it's generally going to be a lot better for you to use the wall for its more intended use, because it will be guaranteed to provide not only yourself, but also your team with value. Because if you wall off Garage, it's guaranteed to inform your team of if anybody is pushing Garage or not. However, if you wall yourself up, it's just going to gain angle advantage, and although you might have an upper hand in a duel because of this, your team does not have that inherent value of knowing where the enemies are, which is not always going to be the best. So if you're going to decide to do one of those crazy Grim walls, you really want to make sure that you're coming out with some kills for it, because you're using an ability that has a built-in strong impact and a ton of team value to help you get an off angle, which can be a very selfish play. Something that can be a win-win though is if you use the wall to not only block off an entrance to sight, but also to help you get an off angle on top of it. Now be careful with this, because oftentimes players may expect you to be on top of the wall, but by using this tactic you can catch players off guard many times and accomplish two really awesome goals. So now that's just one use for the wall, blocking off entrances for post plant. But another great way players use Sage's wall is for strats that I like to call cookie cutter strats, in which Sage will wall off a portion of the site itself in an attempt to cut out a section of the site where her team can plant the bomb and set up for post plant. These strats are most commonly used on Bind and Icebox. Now this does have the flaw of sacrificing site control for her team, but it makes it very difficult for the enemy team to deny the plant as well as retake, because now they have to work around a giant wall in their way. Now you do have to be careful when doing this that the defenders don't just spray the wall down immediately and kill you. However, if you are able to get the wall down, it can be a very strong strategy for your team. These are the three main locations for these sort of cookie cutter strats, but there are other locations I'm sure that you can find to utilize this tactic. Now the last way that Sage's wall is used though that I'm going to mention is to give your team more of a safe passage towards different areas on the map. One common example of this would be when crossing the B site on Split, as well as when you're crossing the middle on Icebox. If you're going to be doing a strategy that requires your team to run through a lane of fire, it might be a good idea for you to throw down a wall and to guarantee that you won't die on the way through. Now notice how none of these uses of Sage's wall that I talked about include having to boost up to higher angles. This is not because it's a bad tactic, but it's just because Sage's wall is an incredibly strong tool, and these are the best ways to get guaranteed value out of her kit. Grim walls are funny and cool, but there's a reason you don't see professional players just running around all the time boosting themselves up. It's because it's not always the best use of the wall. The reason Sage is so strong in Valorant is because her wall changes how the game is played, and you can't say that about every single agent in the game. So let's talk a little bit more about that on defense. On defense, Sage's wall, as we said, is used to block off areas of the map and provide her team the ability to rotate their resources more freely. A common area you'll see this happen is on the middle of Split. By using Sage's wall in the middle of Split, you give your team the ability to focus their attention on either A or B safely, knowing that nobody can flank through mid. This is why it's very important, if Sage is walling mid, that the attackers every single round come towards mid and actually shoot the wall down. Because if they don't, the defenders do not need to play anyone mid because they know nobody has pushed it. This is a huge mistake a lot of players make on Split, and it's the reason people struggle on this map. Sage's wall can provide a lot of value because of this. However, if the enemy team is shooting her wall down immediately, notice how it loses a bit of an impact. Your 300 credit ability that we just talked about how strong it is suddenly didn't get much value. So what should you do if they're shooting your wall down every round? Well, you probably should stop placing it there. Sometimes when this happens, you'll see Sages place their wall deeper up heaven, because this will make it more difficult for the attackers to push up and deal with it. Now, of course, it loses a little bit of potential value because of this. However, it's better than getting no value when it gets shot down immediately. You can also switch up the wall's location. You don't need to wall mid every round. If you turn your attention towards walling something like A, you can still get a ton of value out of this, because now you only need to have one player in the general area of A just to listen if anybody is there or not. And if they don't have anyone there to shoot the wall down, you know that they're probably all mid or B, so you can rotate all of your players to deal with that. You can do the same thing on B too. This way your wall doesn't get shot out right away, and you can use Sage's stalling potential to place more players on a different region of the map, because you know if they try to rush this area, Sage will be able to slow them down until reinforcements arrive, because that is Sage's job. She is intended by Riot to be the primary staller in the game. When they made agents in Valorant, they wanted every agent to have their role that they filled, and that is Sage's role. She is meant to be the agent in the game that can stop a push in its tracks. Pushing through 2 slow orbs and a wall is an incredibly difficult thing to do, and most teams will make the smart decision to not push through them because of that. Lastly, however, another way I recommend using Sage's wall on defense is for post plants. You don't need to use your wall 2 seconds into every round. Sometimes saving it for post plant and using the wall to wall off the bomb while a teammate goes for the defuse is the best way to use it. This is especially good for pistol rounds because pistols take a very long time to kill the wall. And because of this, if you wall off the bomb, it's oftentimes a free defuse for your team. By saving your wall, you can win so many rounds, so I urge you not to just drop it mindlessly. Think about what is going on in the game and how you want to use it. But also wait for info. If you just throw down your wall on B and then 2 seconds later you find out that they're rushing A, you could have just saved it and used it for post plant instead. Listen to what's going on at the beginning of the round, and if you hear a lot of footsteps, maybe consider throwing it down. Lastly, remember, if you want to improve that KDA, win more gunfights, and get the rank that you deserve, then be sure to check out skillcap.com. Link in the description below. Because Sage's wall and kit are the most important parts of her kit, that's what I wanted to go into the most. Her res is a big deal, but for the most part, the biggest recommendation I can give for using it is just to use it whenever you get the chance. Whether you're behind in a round or ahead, you can always guarantee to get value out of it, so it's almost better to use it to secure a round and help your team's eco than it is to sit on it rounds and rounds on end, hoping that you'll find the perfect opportunity. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, feel free to hit that button down below. It really does help us out. And don't forget to answer our question of the day, which was, do you think Valorant is trending more towards an ability-based game with the recent meta changes? Would love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. As always, I'm the King Live, and we here at Skill Capped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.